Okay, I wanted to do a short video on the Esteem grinder. This is built by Brett Matthews, and I told him I would do a review, and he told me that lots of people said that, but nobody ever did one. But this is going to be a very abbreviated review because there's very little online on it, so I just wanted to pretty much do an overview as much as a review. Now, let's talk about what is the same here. This control unit is very common, the KB Genesis, to many grinders. That'll be familiar to many of you. It has a 2 horsepower, if you can see it back there, 2 horsepower Leeson motor. Again, pretty common motor on grinders. So really what we're talking about is the frame, which is Brett's design, and it works quite well. I'm just going to turn it on for a second, just so you can get a look at it running and hear it. This is the variable speed. So you get that running pretty slow, if you so choose. The way it comes wired typically is for 110, and at 110 it's only a horsepower and a half. In order to get the full 2 horsepower out of that motor, you need to wire it for 220, which isn't a big change. However, I would say I've never slowed this thing down even at a horsepower and a half. So depending on your style of knives you want to make, maybe you would slow it down. So here's the tooling arm and the work rest. It works pretty well. You need to crank these down pretty much. This pivots this piece, and then there's an arm there, and then a piece there. And you got to crank them down. But once it's cranked down, it holds pretty good. It allows you to change angles, and I just ordered from Brett the wider. This looks to be about 6 or 7 inches. I ordered the 12-inch work rest, so that will allow me to use a jig a little more readily, because you start to run out of room on this particular work rest that's standard. Of course, you can get it with a wheel or the plenum. I got it with the plenum, and then I want to get the wheel a little later. It tracks pretty well. Why don't I give you an example of that? The tracking knob is right here. So I'm going to just change the tracking. As you can see, that's a glass platen. Works very nicely. The platen's very adjustable. These wheels can move in and out according to how you want it riding over the platen. The platen itself can be turned this way and that way. The way you change the belts, it's a similar design to a baiter. You pull down on that spring and pull the belt out. And then this is a real nice little piece of hardware here. You can see it. This is to loosen and tighten. I'm not going to do it, but loosen and tighten the tooling arm. For a wheel, sorry about the shadows, for a wheel, it has a little different arbor size than the platen. So if you're going to use a wheel as well, it's best to probably get a second tooling wheel than to try to rig up a spacer or something like that. In terms of price, that's where this grinder really shines. I was looking at a lot of different grinders, Bader, KMG, the whole list of them that are out there, and this was a lesser known grinder, maybe in part because it didn't have any YouTube reviews, but the way this is equipped, it was $16.50, and then I forget, 150 bucks, 120 bucks, something like that for shipping. It's heavy, and so it comes disassembled. You got to put it together. this video might help you put it together, because one of the things that's probably a little weak with this is the instructions on putting it together. But frankly, if you just have a picture of it, and you have, you know, reasonable mechanical ability, you can put it together fairly easy. And so that was $16.50 for that, plus shipping, and then an additional tooling arm for, say, a wheel. I believe that was another $85. Then whatever wheel you want. I want to eventually get forks for the small wheels. But this is it. This is the Esteem grinder. Very cost competitive, well built, US built. The base, it's kind of dirty. It's got some use on it, but it's powder coated, a nice color blue. I happen to like blue. If you like blue, you'll like this. Yeah, it works. It works great. It works as well or better than grinders that are considerably more money. So definitely think it's a worthwhile consideration if you're looking to get your first grinder. If you're looking to add a grinder, it's just it's a good value, and it's definitely allowed me to up my game. Coming from, you can see I'm using that for a light, but coming from this this Kalamazoo, which was fine. That's great. I mean, that's a step up from what you would probably see as a very other familiar, like if you want to call it grinder, belt sander, a 1x30 Harbor Freight classic. I think every knife maker in the country probably used one of these at some point or other. Then I moved up to this guy, 2x48, I believe. This is actually pretty nice. A lot of times I put my gator belts on there to finish blades off, and then we move over to the Esteem. So yeah, definitely thumbs up on the Esteem if you're in the market for such a grinder. I would definitely give this one a look. Talk to Brett. He was very willing to explain stuff, and I've been very pleased so far. All right.